everyone. My name is Krasina Mileva, and in my previous life, I was a lawyer. Now I'm a founder of a DOVU. DOVU is really interesting business, which I'm going to talk to you about today. But before that, I just want you to take a look at that sentence. Take a look at it, just remember it, because I'm going to go back to that one at the end of my presentation. We have heard a lot about the technological revolution. It's happening now, and it has been happening for the past few decades. It's a very new thing, and a technological revolution is something very simple, but yet very complicated. It is the change of old technology to new technology. It's a better set of technologies that replaces stuff that help us to interact in our lives. Fourth industrial revolution is also how the technological revolution is known. And now, for the last 10 years, these are the main sectors that have expanded massively. We talk about artificial intelligence, 3D printing, big data, nanotechnologies, autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, robotics, quantum computing, and blockchain. For the past decade, a lot of us have been using our emails as a very handy tool of transferring information. How great is that? I can send you documents, I can send you my PowerPoint presentation, PDF files, a lot of information. And for me as a lawyer, it's great that I can use a piece of software that could help me to actually execute a legal agreement which is binding for the two parties that are signing that agreement. How amazing is that? But let's look at the assets. Can I transfer you via email stocks, commodities, bonds, shares, money? I don't think that any of us would do that. It would be very bad if we actually do that via email. I can't even transfer you cash. So if I send you $100, it's really important that you receive that money. And it's really important that I don't try to send the same 100 quid to another person. Because we have lost trust in our communication, in our interaction, we need intermediaries. We have created them. Intermediaries such as governments, banks, social media companies. We use them to create that trust between ourselves. It's great that they're there because they handle a lot of various transactions happening at the background, starting from personal identification, authorization, going through settlement, and record keeping. Well, that's amazing, but how much does it actually cost us? 2016, the banks worldwide have charged us 8% for those transactions. This, in money, is $3.6 trillion. That's a lot. It's insane. Although they're safe, I see a lot of obstacles there. Apart from how expensive that is to all of us, it's also the fact that they're centralized. What does that mean? Well, they can be easily hacked. And all that data, all that information that they store could very easily be in the wrong hands. And it has been. It excludes billions of people of the worldwide economy. There are a lot of people, believe it or not, in the world that don't have enough money to actually open a bank account. They can't afford to pay those fees to maintain their bank account. So we're excluding them. The banks are from our global economy. The system is very slow. When we use an email, it takes us a second to transfer that information globally. When we want to transfer money globally, it takes us weeks, and it costs per transaction if we want to make that transfer outside the country that we live. from 10 to 20%. It's very slow and very inefficient. They use our data, and we can't have access to our data. We can't monetize that data, and we can't improve the way we live. And also, they invade our privacy. It has been undermined. So, what if there was a global distributed ledger which was running simultaneously on millions of computers, which was accessible to everyone, free, that could also help us to move and transfer those assets from bonds, money, art, even our votes. We can use the ledger to execute them, to manage them, but we can use that ledger also as a record-keeping tool, a technology that would prove that this event happened at that moment of time. In 2008, the financial industry crashed. I don't know whether it was a coincidence or not, but an anonymous individual named Satoshi Nakamoto came up with a paper, in which paper he drafted a code, a protocol that enabled the creation of digital cash. That digital cash is called Bitcoin. I'm not going to talk to you about Bitcoin. I'm not going to talk to you about cryptocurrencies today. I'm going to talk to you about the fact that the underpinning technology below Bitcoin, called blockchain, is the way forward, is that unified ledger that could help us massively in various areas. So, how does it work then? People can trust each other and they can transfer information peer-to-peer. They can trust each other, they trust technology, they trust cryptography, they trust a small piece of code to transact and interact with each other. Once that information is being submitted to the ledger, then we have a group of people called miners. Miners are people that take a huge and major part in the process of creating the blockchain itself. They have a massive computing power under their fingertips, and every 10 minutes, a block of information is created. What they do is, at the end of those 10 minutes, compete and try to verify that this had happened. Whoever is the first one to verify that block wins, and they get a reward, and that reward is digital cash. Then, once the block is validated and confirmed, then it gets connected with the next block, and the next block, and the next block. And all of that information is encrypted. So it's very secure and very safe. So if I wanted to trap you and send a £100 note to 3 of you, the same £100 note, and I would want to use the blockchain, it would be a little bit difficult to do it, because I would have to firstly hack the first block, and then the previous block, and then the block before that, and so on, into the whole commerce of transactions that had happened in that ledger, not only simultaneously, but that information is also being held on millions of computers whilst being encrypted. Well, if someone can do it, please let me know, but I don't think that that's possible. So definitely blockchain is something very secure. It's more secure than computers as we know them nowadays. A young Canadian, when he was 19, called Vitalik Buterin, took a look at what Satoshi Nakamoto created and developed a better protocol that has technology better than the previous one, technology called a smart contract. For me as a lawyer, when I've heard the first time the word smart contract, I was so excited that you could actually mix law with technology. But what is a smart contract? Smart contract could be, if we look at it from a developer's perspective, a piece of code, a piece of information that sets some rules, and once the triggering points are hit it, then something happens. So for a whole event to be executed, it takes seconds up to a minute when you have a smart contract implemented there. If we take a look at the smart contract as a legal agreement, then we do have a lot of issues there. Unfortunately, up until now, the smart contract is not a legally binding agreement in many parts of the world, actually most parts of the world. But funny fact, there is already one state in America, in Arizona, in March this year, they have amended their legislation, and the smart contracts already there are legally binding agreements, which is only there to show us that we're getting there. And it's going to take some time, but I'm a firm believer that our legislation will change in really, really technological way, if you like. I think the smart contracts are awesome. They give us autonomy. So you don't need lawyers to tell you how to interact with each other. You can do whatever you want to. They save you a lot of money. They're safer because of the encryption, because of the backup, because of the fact that you have the ledger there. You have the trust because of the blockchain technology. And you don't need to worry that you're going to lose your contract because it's already there on the blockchain being ledged that at that moment of time, that event happened. They're so fast, fast as sending an email. And they're accurate. There's no way that there would be a mistake there. The only way when you would probably get a mistake is if the developer didn't do his job properly and inserted wrong information within that contract. So it's simple as that. So hopefully by now you've got a bit of understanding of what blockchain is and how that technology can actually help us. All of us are here today to talk about transportation and where we're heading. If we look around us, we could actually see that electrical vehicles are on the roads. It's happening. We're months, a year, before autonomous vehicles will be on the roads, fleets will be on the roads, and that's exciting, and that's great. But also, gives us a huge question mark. What do we do given the technological revolution and given the fact that our systems are not yet ready to meet the new world? I'll just give you a few examples of why I believe that blockchain is very useful in the transportation sector. When we look at the supply chains of vehicles in general, it could be cars, trucks, planes, boats, ships, you name it. At the moment, it is a very, very slow and painful process. You need to know where the vehicle is, you need to make sure that you've paid all the taxes that you need to pay on the way. You need to make sure that it's there on time, you need to know at what moment of time the vehicle is at what location and so on. So if you're in that industry, you know what I'm talking about. And that's crazy and it's expensive and it takes so much time. So if you had a blockchain underlying that supply chain, then things could have looked a bit different. You would have known very quickly all of that information only by looking at the ledger, which would have stamped all of the transactions that had happened at that time. If we look at manufacturer finance, a lot of companies, well, I think all of them, wait for weeks and months until they get their money for the vehicles that they have sold. Well, if we implement smart contracts and blockchain, and if, let's say, we've put a rule in the smart contract which says at the moment that this contract is executed, £10,000 need to come to that bank account. At the moment when the money hit the account, the vehicles should be shipped from here to here, and then at the same time you're required to, let's say, report on every 5 or 10 hours where the vehicle is. You can have that in a smart contract. So once the first point of action is triggered, then the whole contract keeps moving and gets executed. But there is no human interaction there. It's all technology. And that's great about it. Retail, sales, services, finance. That's another interesting one. What happens with the vehicle history at the moment? Not much. OEMs do collect the data, but what do they do with it? What if they actually use that data in a way that could predict the driver's behavior, the way that the vehicle performs, so they can improve it? How often does the engine brakes? What can they do about it? Vehicle and brand experiences are a great example of where the industry is going. Nowadays, at least the car companies that our company has spoken to is realizing that it's not only about the vehicle, it's about the brand experience that you could provide to your customer. Because we're shifting slowly to an environment where we don't really need to own a vehicle. We could easily share a vehicle, rent one out, rent it for an hour, and then give it back. So what I mean when I say brand experience, let's say you have a big car and you like to travel a lot over the weekends. Well, why not? Your brand gives you a free weekend away with a cabrio or a motorbike if you're a fan, or a camper van, and that's for free. So if you could have that experience and if you could have that for free, would you not want to use it? And if not, then, well, the car manufacturer could actually move to something different and offer that to you to incentivize you. Spare parts and warranties, another interesting one, although I don't know how long that would be viable for, given where the world is moving. But again, there is a huge issue at the moment with moving parts from A to B, and people that own their cars. A lot of people still buy their cars secondhand. And if you buy a 10 years old car, sometimes you don't even know how many times that car has been repaired. Or even if you do, you don't know where your parts are coming from. Well, if you use blockchain, that problem could be very easily solved. You know from day one to up to date what had happened with your car. And if we look into the analytics of that, then you get the picture. And then the last example that I would like to share with you is when we speak about electrical vehicles. Why not use the spare charge that has left in the electric vehicle to sell back to the grid so someone else can use it? But why not get rewarded for that with something at the same time? So we at DOVU had taken a wide look at the picture in the transportation sector and the pros and cons and the technology. And we thought that it would be great if we could remunerate all the ones that are contributing towards the ecosystem. How cool it would be if your car pays you to drive it. Let's presume that I've driven today from London to here, and I have used my either DOVU app or integrate a DOVU wallet in my car and I've decided that I want to sell some data. And then you're going to say, well, hold on a minute, what data are you talking about? Well, a fun fact is that whilst we're driving, we are creating data, and that data is ours, but up till now, nothing is actually happening with that data. We are not being remunerated for that data. And we should, because we're the one providing it. What type of data is that? Well, if it's raining, then the windshield wipers will be on. So why not sell that data off and get remunerated for that? If, well, the telematics of the car can tell us a lot about the road condition. Well, why not help the city council with that information so they can improve the road? Traffic lights, congestion charges, traffic jams. All of that information could actually be sold and you could be remunerated for that with a DOVU token. We're trying to create a circular economy where everyone that's contributing in the ecosystem gets rewarded. Not only the end user, you and me, but also the OEMs and all the other companies which are involved in the transportation sector. So I'm going to expand a bit of an example, which at the moment is a hypothesis, but we're working towards it being actually a reality. So let's say that today, by coming here, I've earned 100 tokens. And that's great, but what am I going to do with those 100 tokens? Where am I going to spend them? Well, you could have options. You could use them to buy yourself a coffee, or get 20% off when you need to change your tires of your car, or get a better premium insurance, or maybe get a free holiday, get a cheaper flying ticket, or maybe get a free meal. Who knows? So I think that it's very important for us to remember that reward is the way that we need to think going forward. Incentivize people on each side of the supply chain is the way forward. We do think that our protocol creates exciting new use cases for relevant and different parties. When we speak about connected vehicles, we have a secure processing and sharing of data. Electric vehicles, well, definitely that could affect dynamic pricing at the charging stations. Autonomous cars, why not having fleets that manage their own payments, and then you don't need to bother to pay for your parking, or you don't need to think about your MOT or the toll taxes or whatever else taxes that will be there in the future. Your car will be doing it for you. It could help the leasing agreements, which will then be instantaneous. Why not use the token as one uniform method of payment across the transportation sector? When we speak about decentralized business models, well, we could easily cut out the middlemen, which would mean savings. We can monetize easily data, and in the insurance sector, it gets quite interesting. Why not have a specially tailored insurance towards your needs? Why would you have to pay so much when not all the time your family is in the car, when sometimes you're driving a company car, and then why not make that cheaper for us? We believe that blockchain and our platform is the way forward to that. We believe that with the help of the smart contracts, and the fact that blockchain as a technology can handle very small real-time transactions instantaneously, in the second, the fact that you have a trusted relationship between the parties, and the fact that it's very secure could actually promise us a better future. So this is the future to me, and I do believe that we'll be seeing that definitely in the next 5 years. We're definitely heading that way. And if you come back to the very first sentence of my slide, on the contrary, I do believe that we need to believe in straight computers, but millions of them, so we can work towards a better world. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to grab me or send me an email. Thank you.